Hey, it's so good to be back with you again and recording. And I definitely have a treat for you today. So, this is all about crushing your goals. Well, this episode is going to be the first in a series of episodes that's really going to break down habits. It's called Habits Uncomplicated. And today we're going to start at the very, very core of things. We'll call it Goal Crush 101 with defining a habit and differentiating it from tasks, routines, systems, and rhythms. So we're going to talk about all those things today, and hopefully it will be a good foundation for you to get back into or continue your goal crushing. All right, let's do it.
Hey, busy lady. Welcome to the Heal Thy Spirit podcast. Do you want to stop procrastinating and stay motivated to get things done? Are you a time-starved night owl, constantly searching for ways to have time freedom? Do you wake up most mornings with audacious goals, only to get distracted and overwhelmed when your busy life sidetracks your agenda? Then, instead of focusing on your to-do list, you've wasted countless hours scrolling Facebook ads for goal planners and habit trackers because all your multitasking has robbed the mental clarity you need to stay on target. Well, sis, you're in the right place. I, too, was juggling work, kids, and multiple responsibilities. I felt exhausted and disorganized and wished I could establish efficient daily habits and routines. I wanted more time, a flexible schedule, and a plan I could stick to. Actually finish what I'd started. I used to think everyone else's needs should come first, and I truly believed chasing my own dreams was selfish, until I discovered my secret ingredient: success coaching mixed with a little planning and a lot of prioritization. In this podcast, you'll get useful time-saving tools, habit hacks, and the accountability to ignite your own fire so you can hit those targets and confidently crush your goals. I'm a talker and a no-holds-barred kind of teacher. So go grab one of those pretty little notebooks I know you've been hoarding. Girl, me too. It's crush time.
Hello. Happy March. I want to welcome you back to the podcast. I'm Tia, as you probably know, and I am here to talk today about habits, or habits being uncomplicated. So this is the first episode in a series. I'm not sure how many we'll have here. I have 5 or so planned out, and we'll just kind of see how things go and where the spirit leads me. But I wanted to first ask, how are you doing with your 2023 goal crushing? We're about 2/3 of the way through the first quarter of the year, and this is the time, I don't know the exact statistics, but they say that people tend to give up on their goals or their New Year's resolutions or whatever they set out to do at the beginning of the year, usually by the mid to end of February. So we're already into the first week of March, and I'm wondering, how are you doing? No condemnation here. I can tell you, as much as I preach and say, one thing at a time, one category at a time, there are a lot of things that come up, and life comes up. This podcast, for example, I'm a little short and I owe you a few episodes. So we'll see if maybe we can do a marathon of a couple of days in a row to get caught up. I'm not sure, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to show up for you as I promised I would, and I'm going to give you the goods as they come to me, and we'll go from there. Now, if you have fallen off your goals, whichever goals you set, whether it be, health goals, drinking water goals, work goals, parenting goals, whatever the goals were that you set in the beginning of the year, if you've kind of gone astray, the good news is that it's not too late to start over. This series is going to basically be a deep dive into one of the fundamental, well, I say one, but it's really habits are the fundamental basics of goal setting and goal crushing. But, it's just that fundamental or foundation. And we're all about building on, learning more or being able to use, I, for whatever reason, can't talk, and you're not going to get an edit out of me, so you'll just have to deal with my little mix-ups here. But basically what I'm saying is that, we overcomplicate the idea of making habits. This podcast is about growing every day, doing a little bit more than you did the day before, learning a little bit more, teaching a little bit more, serving a little bit more, doing, everything that we do in small increments, with the idea being at the end of the day or at the end of this season, you're going to be, miles ahead of where you were when you started. So it's not too late to start again. Hopefully this will be a good step or a good first step for you to get back into those visions and dreams of what you had planned for yourself. Now, I'm going to try to make these episodes, fairly short. I've been doing a pretty good job the last couple of episodes and not going crazy with all the over talking. But, just have grace and give your girl a little grace, because I'm a talker, and you already know that if this is not the first episode that you're listening to. All right, so let's get talking about it. Essentially, everyone has habits. Whether you think about it or not, those habits can be healthy or unhealthy or neutral. Really not going to get into that specifically today. We all have a different perspective on what's considered, a healthy habit and what's an unhealthy habit. And we also have different goals for what we're trying to achieve. So today, I really want to get into the nitty-gritty of what a habit is. Now, that being said, that we all have habits that we have developed, we probably have not thought about the habits and their or tasks or routines or how they interact with one another. Once we understand the difference between a task and a routine and a system and a rhythm and a habit, then that we can focus on each individual area one day at a time to move closer to our end goal. Now, like I said, you probably more than likely developed some or all of the habits, or all of the topics rather, that we'll discuss today, but it's much less likely that you've thought about them in conjunction with one another and how they fit into your day-to-day life. I remember the first time that I heard the concept of a morning routine. It was maybe 5 years ago. It was when I first started a network marketing business, and Miracle Morning book by Hal Elrod was all the rave at that time. Everybody was talking about their Miracle Morning. I had never heard of it, and being the personal development guru that I am, or nerd junkie, whatever you want to call it, I immediately got the book. I read it. Joined the Facebook group. I decided I was going to, develop my own Miracle Morning. And I'll just give you, I'll put a link to the book in the show notes if you've never heard of it. But the gist of it is, or the idea is to wake up an hour earlier each day and to spend that hour doing these 6 things that Hal Elrod calls savers. It's an acronym, and you know how I feel about acronyms. And you do the 6 things in 10-minute increments. So essentially, and what they are, I'll just tell you real quickly. Silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing, or writing, but he had to use an S word, so it all fits. Silence is just 10 minutes of silence, sitting there, being quiet, listening to God or whatever calming, meditation type things. I tried meditation. That doesn't work because my mind always wanders, but that's neither here nor there. Affirmations, we've talked about them here on the podcast before. I call them declarations or biblically based declarations, but it's the same thing. You spend 10 minutes affirming who you are and what you are looking to accomplish. Then visualization, it talks about having a vision for what your goals are. Like, you might have a prayer board or a dream board or a vision board that you would look at for 10 minutes a day. I know that seems like painfully long. But, it's the idea of getting those visions in your mind of what it is that you want to achieve. 10 minutes of exercise, 10 minutes of reading, and 10 minutes of writing. And so that, is the gist of it. And again, it's not the topic for today. I only mention it because it is a good reference and it's a great way to start small. He even talks about in the book, you can cut that in half. If you don't have an hour every morning, cut it into 30 minutes and do each thing for 5 minutes a day. Or there's like, you could, even condense it down and just do like the miracle minute or something like that, doing 1 minute of each thing. I don't know. I forget all the details, but like I said, you can go check out the book if you're interested in it. For me, at that time, I did this because it was a thing to do. At that time, it helped me kind of get into the habit of getting up earlier. I don't know how many consecutive days I, actually did the miracle morning, so to speak, because, as I've told you before, I used to be a quitter. So, I love to start things, but as far as finishing them, out the door. But I mean, years later, I can attribute a good portion of the morning routine that I currently have is built up of habits and tasks that do contribute overall to my systems and rhythms in life. I've mentioned it before, daily Bible reading is a habit that I have developed as a part of my morning routine. And now, if we talk about what my routine is today, I'm in the Bible reading actual chapters of the Bible, day by day, in an attempt to read the entire thing every year. That started with me just reading one verse. I used Cultivate What Matters, Write the Word journal, which I still use from time to time. It's not an everyday thing for me anymore because I feel like I've kind of graduated. Like, your mind opens up and you have more questions, and it gets to a point where that one little bit is not enough. But that was a good place for me to start. Somebody that didn't really know the Bible at all, I was reading one verse a day, copying it into my journal, and then journaling about what I had read. So that has, again, evolved into me reading straight out of the Bible several chapters every morning. Once that habit became automatic, which last year was the first year that I completed it, 2022, this year I kind of shifted my focus and built on that habit. I already have this morning routine, and that habit of reading the Bible was something that's become automatic, so I don't have to think about doing it. It's just part of what I do every morning when I get up. So I was able to add, for example, exercise. So that has been something that, I've done hit or miss here and there, but now I can say that I've successfully implemented that as a new habit. Each morning I'm up, and as part of my routine, I might do my exercise first, or I might have my time with God first, along with all the other things that are in my daily routine. And do I do it every single day in the exact same order without fail? Of course not. But that's not the point. My mornings are so habitual now that even if I do miss a day or two, it does not completely derail my whole system. I was freaking out because my son, I live in Denver now, and you know that I was living in Maryland and Virginia when I started this podcast last year. But my son graduated from college and actually got a job coincidentally out here in Denver. So at the end of January, I had, again, beginning of the year, just getting into a routine. And I wasn't working out every day, but I was probably working out 3 or 4 times a week. And I had gotten into such a routine, and in knowing myself and my past habits, I was terrified when I went, I flew out there back to Virginia to pick him up and help him drive his car out here. So I wasn't going to be able to work out Friday with the girls that I work out with. Shout out again to the Fit Squad. And I was going to miss Saturday's workout with Fit Squad and Transformation Tribe because, again, I'd be back on my off time zone. And then Sunday, no workout. Monday, we were going to be on the road, Sunday and Monday. So I was freaking out leading up to that. But I got back, and it was just like I never left. Come Tuesday, got up, same routine, back in the saddle. So because I had done it enough so that it was more normal to follow my routine than not, if that makes sense. So anyway, it'll all come together, in the end as we deep dive into the series and get a better understanding of what each one is, and then we'll be able to come back to it and reference this conversation. You'll be like, oh yeah, that's what she was talking about. So anyway, these definitions of these buzzwords, as I call them in the productivity world, they all come from Merriam-Webster. And for purposes of this discussion, I'll only be referring to the noun form of each word. So obviously many words have multiple meanings, but the noun form and, as it pertains to this topic of conversation. So habit, for example, we're not going to be talking about a nun's habit because that's the same word, but not the same meaning. So I found 4 definitions for the word habit. First one is a settled tendency or usual manner of behavior. A settled tendency or usual manner of behavior. The second definition, an acquired mode of behavior that has become nearly or completely involuntary. So in other words, automatic. 3, a manner of conducting oneself, bearing. The manner in which one behaves or comports oneself. And I actually had to look up comport because I don't like not knowing what words mean, and it's just another word for behave. And number 4, the prevailing disposition of character or of a person's thoughts and feelings, mental makeup. So the prevailing disposition of character of a person's thoughts and feelings, their mental makeup. That I thought was interesting because I actually had never heard that as a definition of habit, but it goes right into what, we're talking about today. So let's break it down. A settled tendency or usual manner of behavior. So just like in the example I just gave, what do you usually do? How do you usually behave? That forms a habit. Brushing your teeth is a habit. Washing your hands is a habit. Maybe you have a certain way that you set the table. That's a habit. Maybe you have a certain flavor. Like for me, when I go to the dentist and they ask me for, when they do your 6-month cleaning or whatever, they ask what flavor. I always get cinnamon at the dentist. That's just a habit, something I do. I don't even want to hear the other flavors. I get cinnamon. It's weird because I don't use cinnamon toothpaste at home, but when I go to the dentist, I look forward to the cinnamon flavored toothpaste. So that's just an example, a small thing of, what a habit is. Like I said, what I found interesting about the prevailing disposition or character of a person's thoughts and feelings or your mental makeup, in regards to a habit. So you might think about a person like, I mentioned my son earlier, and I'll call him a gym rat and say things like that. But, I had a conversation with him about exercise and going to the gym, and he told me, because a lot of things that I do, I just do them because I know that they are how you're going to get to an end result. So if I want to be more in shape, it is necessary to exercise in order to build endurance and strength to be able to, live a more fit life. Him, on the other hand, he's like, no, I enjoy the gym. I look forward to it every day. And I don't understand that so much, but, I'm not knocking it. So that's interesting that, a habit for him is, it's just part of who he is. And we all have habits, both good and bad, that make us who we are. So put a pin in that one. We'll come back to that in a future episode. As we dive into deciding, actually next week we'll get into it in deciding, what habits and how you're going to develop them. All right, so moving on to a task. A task is defined as a usually assigned piece of work, often to be finished within a certain time. So, I'll just read the second one. Something hard or unpleasant that has to be done. And you hear people use the term, like that's a tasking chore, or that's, you get what I'm saying. But the point I'm making here in the difference between a task and a habit is you don't write your habits on your to-do list. Your habits are just things that are done automatically. It's a part of who you are. It's a part of, where, how you accomplish things. A task, on the other hand, is a specific thing that needs to be done within a specific time, like, making the bed or cooking dinner or making a doctor's appointment, taking the kids to soccer practice, going to the grocery store. These are all things that you that are tasks, that are things that need to be done, and they have a start and an end. And they may be repeated tasks where you do, you go to the grocery store every week, or every other week you go to the grocery store, but it's not so much, a habit. You may complete that task in a habitual way, if I'm not confusing you anymore, but it's different than an actual habit. Now you can form, many, have tasks that, like I said, you complete in a habitual way or as part of a routine or a system or a rhythm that we'll get to. But, the point is that it's not the same as a task, as a habit. You don't want, especially that second definition of it being hard or unpleasant, but has to be done. A habit isn't that. It can be hard, but by this definition, with it being something that you just do and that you do automatically without thinking, then more than likely it's not hard, because you've implemented it into your lifestyle where it's just something that you automatically do. It's part of who you are. So there's that. The third word, routine. So the definitions for routine are a regular course of procedure. 2, habitual or mechanical performance of an established procedure. 3, a worked out part that may be often repeated, like a dance routine. 4 is a sequence of computer instructions for performing a particular task. I like this definition not because we're a computer, but for purposes of how I think of routines, is that, you might have, you have a task that you have to complete, or that you want to, you have to, in this case. I don't like to use the word have to, but task, it's something that has to be done. You go to work, your boss gives you a list of tasks that need to be completed as part of your job. The task, they don't necessarily tell you what order you have to do them in or anything like that, but I have a particular work routine, during my day when I sit down to do work. The goal is to, contact the homeowners or my clients and give them the information that they need so that they can receive the product that they've applied for. There's a system there's a sequence of things that must be done in order to complete the overall task. And you might develop certain habits, which altogether, when you put those habits together, they become a routine. I hope that's making sense. I feel like I'm just kind of all over the place. But again, a sequence of computer instructions for performing a particular task. not, we'll take the word computer out of it, but think of it that way. A habitual or mechanical performance of an established procedure, you might have a procedure set in place, and then you do it so often and you do it so much, as what I mentioned in my morning routine, that you don't even think about it. It's just a bunch of different habits that come together and form a routine. So I hope, and that's why we use the term like morning routine or evening routine, or if you have kids, you might have an after school routine of a certain period of time where certain things are done, and over, repeatedly, maybe every day, maybe every week, maybe every month, but all in all, a routine is a collection of tasks or a collection of habits to complete a bigger task. I think that's succinct enough for you. All right. And a system. So the definition for system is an organized or established procedure, harmonious arrangement or pattern, order. So with a system, for me, what I take from that, a system is the procedure that you are, or getting the things in order and doing it in an established manner. So you would hear someone talk about having a cleaning system. So you have a big whole big house to clean, but you may have a system of how you clean that. That system is built up of routines for certain things. So like that include, certain habits and certain tasks. So for me, I have a system of, my laundry system is completing it on Wednesdays so that I don't have to do laundry on the weekends. So I have a system, and it happens every single Wednesday without fail. Well, I say without fail, but I did actually do laundry on Thursday this week because I was tired on Wednesday. But it's still the same system. And, there you separate your clothes into different piles. You separate the things that have to be washed in cold water, the things that have to be washed in warm water, the things that have to be washed in hot water. And you get it done. You put in the Tide Pod, you put in your fabric softener. I actually use those, I can't think of what they're called, they're like scent. They're like little beads, and you like put them in with the laundry, but they smell so good. It works so much better than like the liquid fabric softener. But throw those in. I throw the clothes in, and if I'm doing whites, I might throw some bleach in to the little pocket, and they all have their individual spot of where everything goes. I hit start on the washer, and it does its thing. And I do all of those things pretty much in the exact same order as putting in a load of laundry, all in the same exact order. And I do it every week. When it's done, I pull them out of the washer, throw them into the dryer with the dryer sheet, hit start, let it do its thing. When they come out, you take them out, you fold them up, you put away the things that need to be put away. The last load in my laundry system, because with Bond, his shirts, he doesn't dry them. He likes them to hang dry or air dry. So I do that last. Well, I actually modify that. Typically, I do that last because then, that's something that doesn't have to wait for the dryer, and I can, just quickly hang those up as the last step, and I don't have to worry about folding. So that's kind of the laundry system that I have in place. And what makes it different from a habit is that it's a whole bunch of different steps. I'm not just doing one thing. It's a bunch of one things that I do that I put together that forms a Wednesday routine for doing laundry, which is an organized and established procedure for getting the laundry done. Hopefully that doesn't confuse you too much. But in mentioning, if we look at the definition part of it, harmonious arrangement or pattern, it's kind of like putting things in the right order that makes sense for you, and then doing it that way as established. Established, I want to like bold that word, because it's not something that you try once and never do it again. It's kind of the way that you do it and you kind of do it that way all the time because it works. All right, enough about that. Moving on to rhythms. Movement, fluctuation, or variation marked by the regular recurrence or natural flow of related elements. So very similar to a system, but I like to think about it, you're in a rhythm when it's kind of like a combo. It's like a routine or a system that you have in a flow, and like you're just, vibing. Like you can think about, if you are you're traveling to a place for the first time, you're driving somewhere in your car and you don't really know how to get there. So you're having to, follow Waze or Google Maps or whatever your navigation system of choice is. And it tells you the ways to go. And when I first moved here, I had to, I've only been here 6 months, so I still don't know where a lot of things are. But I had to really pay attention to, what the instructions were of telling me, how to get from A to Z. And it might take, X number of minutes, 15 minutes to get from here to there. I'm going to take a little bit longer because I'm making sure I'm paying closer attention to the street signs and, all the things. But when you're in a rhythm, you're just ebbing and flowing and doing things and not even having to think about it. I know, somebody else here has to have been through that situation where you're in the car and you're on your way to work. Like that's a drive that you take every single day, the same route pretty much. And your mind starts to wander a little bit because you don't have to think about it as hard. And then before you know it, you're at work and you're like, how did I get here? And you physically drove, you paid attention to all the traffic lights and, everything that was happening, but you're able to do additional things in addition to, the core topic at hand. So that's basically, the difference between a system and a rhythm is, once you're in a rhythm, it's like being in a groove or being in a flow where you're just going with it. And again, it's like a habit, but bigger because it's a whole collective system that's in a flow. So that's it. So I'll just run through real quick what all the definitions are to kind of pinpoint the differences. A habit is, an automatic, think about it that way. Habit, an automatic thing that you do, how you behave or an action that you take that's part of your mental makeup. A task, usually something that's assigned to you, but the difference between a task and a habit is that a task often has to be done, and it usually has to be done within a certain amount of time, and oftentimes it's difficult or unpleasant to do. That's why we avoid them, and our task lists keep growing and growing. Routine is just a regular course of procedure or performance of, like I said, a sequence of computer instructions for performing a particular task. So you might have a task that's composed of many habits, and those habits and tasks form a routine. Once you have a routine, we move on to system, which is an organized or established procedure that's a harmonious arrangement or pattern. So an order of putting those routines in a specific order to help you accomplish that goal. And then finally, rhythm. It's the movement, fluctuation, or variation marked by the regular recurrence or natural flow of related elements. So again, it's kind of like the umbrella word, similar to a habit because you're doing it automatically, but it's composed of your routines and systems. All right, enough about that. I am, over the 30-minute mark, and I do apologize. I do value your time. The following episodes in this series will definitely be shorter because they'll be smaller chunks of what we are diving into. So your homework. Yes, Sasha, we have homework. I know it's been a while since I've given you homework, but if you are serious about implementing any of the concepts that we talked about today into your daily day-to-day, then you will start the work. It's never too late to start. I want you to think about your day. You can even refer back to like when I had you do like a time tracker back in episodes 9 and 10. If you've been with me that long, or if you haven't, then go back and listen if this is your first time here. But I had you take an inventory of your time. That's not what we're doing this time. I just want a list of the things that you do. So make a list of all your habits, and you can just pick, like, say, your morning routine. If you don't have a official morning routine, but maybe that's something you'd like to develop, then, just take a look at your morning. What do you do from the time you wake up to the time you start work every morning? And just pick one day, write down everything that you do. And then that's kind of, where I want you to, generate your list. Once you have that list of things, look at the things and identify them as, something that's positive or something that's negative or something that is neutral. Like, it's not really positive or negative. It's just something that you do. And shout out to James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, for coming up with this exercise. I read that book recently, and we'll talk more on that later as well. But this is one of the exercises that he has in the bonus information. And next time we're going to look at deciding, the what, the when, the where, and the why of habits to set the vision for where you want to end up next. And that's pretty much all I have for you today. Hopefully this helped and didn't confuse you with my crazy rambling that will not be edited. I repeat. So take what you can out of it, and I'll be here with you next time. And I hope you have a really good week. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, ladies, for hanging out with me today. It's been a blast. Now, if today's episode was good for you and the Spirit leads, please write a review to help others find us and receive some of the value that you got today. Okay, until next time, I'll see you over in the Healthy Spirit Facebook group. Link is in the show notes for you procrastinators. May grace and peace be yours